Today, GQ magazine have released a new Wheel of Time article, and within it we get a couple new images for the show and a very interesting but extremely long article to go over. So without further ado, let's jump right in and discuss the new photos, starting with this. The aftermath of Winter Night with Rand and his horse and Tam. So, like we said, in the article they mentioned how they built this whole town from scratch in the middle of nowhere to literally burn it down within a couple of days after having created it. And so that just shows you the level they're going to, in terms of spending, just to make sure they get everything done correctly for the show. Now, there's a lot going on within this photo that gives us a bit more understanding of certain scenes that we now know will be happening, and just generalizing other points as well. So to begin with, as we all know, we get our first glimpse of Rand and Tam's heron marked sword as well. It's very hard to make out, but yeah, I believe we'd only seen Land's heron marked sword, if I'm not mistaken, or his blade in general. Now we've got a first look at Rand, or Tam's sword, and now Rand's. But obviously, moving away from that, the obvious point of why I want to cover this particular photo is for the fact that Tam is on the horse, and he is obviously gravely injured. And as we can see, Rand has a bewildered look on his face, like he's literally just come into town, very much like in the book, and he can't believe the devastation that he's seeing has occurred overnight. He probably thought it was just an occurrence at his place, and because he was, so caught up in the moment, he never thought about Emond's Field being attacked. And so he's in this general daze, which is very understandable. Now, not only that, something to take away from this photo with Tam on the horseback being injured is one particular thing. From Monday's behind the scenes reel, there was a literal 1 second shot within that 20 or 30 odd second scene that we got, where we see Tam inside, obviously, the Alfor farmhouse, and the doors are burst open, and we get a look very, very quickly at a Trolloc. Now, this has confirmed it for us because, as we all know, this is Tam, and he's wearing literally the same outfit as we saw in that behind the scenes shot from yesterday, which is very interesting. Also, another thing I love about this particular photo is to the right of Rand, there is the Trollocs' hooves and a few other Trollocs just laying dead, scattered around. One is in a horse's carriage. I think that's just a nice added touch with this particular shot, that there's just going to be dead bodies lying around everywhere on the set and in the screen when we see these come to life. Now, is there anything else? As the article mentioned, everything's very, charred, smoked, burnt down to the ground. And so that is what we are seeing in this photo as well. So moving away from that, let's go to the second photo, which is the Children of Light. Now, as you can see, we've got our first, very high clear look at them. And I have to say, I love the designs of these armor. Yes, they're missing, I believe it's the golden sunburst on the white field edged with gold insignia. But just in general, I love the look that they've gone for here. Also note, to the right, we have Aemon Valder, I believe, here as well. And of course, I cannot not mention Joffrey Bornold as well. He's in the scene for the first time also. And something also to note is there's 3 distinct, I would say, ranks in this scene. And this is all to do with the shoulder pad armor and the gauntlets that they're all wearing. As you'll see, I believe the lesser ranked members of the Children of the Light are wearing just plain white armor. Then we've got the more senior and higher up officials such as Valder and Joffrey Bornold on the screen here. Each wearing individually I believe gold plated armor and then a silver plated armor to just signify the different ranks within children, which I think is a very nice touch as well. I believe this shot is pretty much the exact same one we got in the behind the scenes from yesterday also, so that's nice to see. Moving away from that, we have a second look at Leandrin and her fellow Red Adger sisters. As I've mentioned before on many a video now, I've always said there seems to be sort of armor in certain points of the area of Sudan, and it seems to be that's a continuation at the very least with the Reds. Not much else to say about this particular photo. I love the design on this belt here from the one to the right. I think it's a nice intricate looking design as well. And yeah, just about that. We then have a shot of the Amelin seat showing Sanche on her throne, I suppose. Note her Aes Sedai ring. There is no coloured stone in there to signify obviously the Adger that she's from, because she is no longer from an Adger, so to speak, as she represents every Adger as the Amelin seat. And so they've left it, from what I can see of this photo, as a gold ring to signify she's above them all. Once again, I love her outfit. This speaks of, regality or royalty. It's just on another level, this outfit, just to show who she is. And if nobody knows she's the Amelin seat or knows of Aes Sedai, they will know she's of a higher importance within the structure that she would be coming in. So like, say she came with fellow sisters to somewhere and the people she would meet there had no idea who they were. Just her clothing alone would signal her as the main person in that group. Away from that, I love the designs in the background of where she's sitting, the stonework, the designs there are absolutely beautiful. So yeah, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that's all the photos. And then we got basically an exact same photo of a Logain being captured that we got in Entertainment Weekly, so I'm not going to be covering that one at all. But yeah, there's a lot of interesting stuff in the article to be covered. I did a video on that earlier but forgot to hit the record button on my Blue Yeti, so the audio might sound a bit different, but I'm going to cut and edit what I think is relevant from that recording and then put into this video. So, inside Amazon's Wheel of Time, Amazon's huge gamble on the next Game of Thrones. Okay. As legend has it, a few years back, Jeff Bezos demanded that his team at Amazon Studios create a fantasy epic that would put Game of Thrones to shame. Turns out that kind of thing is even harder to do than it sounds. And more expensive than you can imagine. Inside the epic quest to bring Wheel of Time to life and maybe change the face of global television forever. I like the sound of that. Not long ago, this quarry 40 kilometers outside Prague held a carefully built fake town called the Two Rivers. Then, a few days back, the producers and set dressers of Amazon's The Wheel of Time burned it down. The town's inn, an intricately rendered two-story building, is now blackened, its left side plunged into spiky rubble. Smoke machines give the impression that it's still smouldering. There are holes in the roof, artfully destroyed beams. Every house, interior and exterior, has been charred enough so that it shows on camera. The actors who wander the Two Rivers are made up to match. Rosamund Pike, who starred in Gone Girl, is smudged with soot. Rain has begun to come down in earnest, pulling in the muddy streets and making the extras and the stuntmen shiver. Oh my lord, I'm going to have trouble with this name. Michael McEccleton, who played Roose Bolton on Game of Thrones and is playing the character called Tam Al-4 on The Wheel of Time, sits on a stump in the middle of it all in a big down jacket, staring at nothing in particular. Wow, this article is old. They visited this years ago. It's November 2019, and the production compromising hundreds of, and on some days nearly 1,000 people, is filming the end of the first episode of what everyone hopes will be a television show that runs for, well, 6 seasons. So, as I said on many a video, I've always felt that we would get to the end of the first episode and that whole, portion of Emmons Field and Winter Night and everything that goes on within that space of time would happen in the first episode, and it seems like this article has given us confirmation on that. Okay, 6 seasons? 8? A show that will be as epic and sensational and ubiquitous as Game of Thrones once was. On one side of the green, a camera sits on a long dolly track. Another camera operator stalks the scene, taking various close-ups. The episode's veteran television director, Uta Brieswitz, is arranging 4 of the show's main cast of relatively unknown young actors in a moment of reckonings. Pike's character, a woman with mysterious powers, has arrived to awaken them and set them on their way. Your life isn't going to be what you thought, Pike intones, as various cameras circle her. Pike runs through her speech, which is heavy with exposition for both the characters and the audience. A few times. Can I do one more, she asks, while apologising to the extras scattered about. I think that one got a bit phony. Finally, oh God, I am so sorry for mispronouncing your name. Bree Wiltz calls cut. Pike retreats from the reverie into a nearby tent. It's not like working with David Fincher, she says to me, referring to Gone Girl's director, Penchant, for shooting 70 takes of a scene. The production is huge and moving at warp speed. Pike has to know things backwards and forward. She has to get her lines out as dozens of crew members and background actors get soaked in the cold rain, and actual living corpses wander around while makeup women with transparent plastic bags dart in and out to touch up extras, and guys with smoke canisters paddle mist into the edge of shots. This set there on not just a few fellow facades. Bloody hell, this is so small. Let me bring this forward so I can see it better. This set there on, not just a few hollow facades set up to create the impression of reality, but real buildings in every direction, is giant, immersive, and won't last past this episode. So yeah, as we've all said, they are building these sets that they deem to be worthy to life-size, sparing no amount of money to create them. So the show has that feel of immersion that they're trying to convey across to us as the audience and fans. There's not going to be any sort of green screens going on in these particular first episodes. It's all going to be real sets that they have built purposely to be burned down for Winter Night. So this is fantastic news, to say the least. Alright, let's move on. Want to make the next Game of Thrones? This is how it begins. Viewers have become accustomed to a kind of scale or realism that creeps towards the actual real. This is what I just kind of mentioned. It's not like we can go and say, oh, Game of Thrones Season 1, they only spent this. Mike Webber, an executive producer of The Wheel of Time, says, the audience expectation is coming off of the last season of Game of Thrones, not the first season. It's a very good point to make. For the first season of Game of Thrones, HBO spent about $6 million an episode, a number that steadily climbed from there. Amazon and The Wheel of Time, they're spending upwards of a reported $10 million per episode for 8 in total. The first of which will be streaming in November 19th, just to get out the gate. So that is $80 million for the whole season. So that is a ridiculous number. And as they've said in this very small part of the article, the audience in general that watch Game of Thrones, they are used to huge productions and huge sets, and with that comes the cost of that. And so, with the audience being used to that, the Wheel of Time, they couldn't afford to not spend that amount of money, because everybody's now come accustomed to that level of set design and intricacy and all the goings on that happened in that final season, no matter what people think of it. So let's carry on. One of the crazy things about now Rafe Judkins, showrunner and executive producer, says is just how ready and willing networks are to just look you in the eye and say, I'm going to build the two rivers and then we're going to burn it down at the end of episode 1. And they're like, great, what's next? I love that. That's funny. I like that. That's easy to say, of course, but then you have to do it. You have to spend months and millions of dollars constructing the village, populating it with actors, and then staging its downfall. You have to build and build and build just to tear it all down to singed pieces in a day or two. You have to risk failing at the highest level in the most spectacular way possible. That's very true. Just to play the game. And so that's what Judkins and his production did. They built the two rivers and burned it down. That was 2 years ago, yeah. And though they've gone on to make nearly 2 seasons worth of television on elaborately constructed sound stages and in remote locations across Eastern Europe, they haven't been back to that burned out village since. Well, we all know as readers of the book, outside of the first, book, there is literally no time spent in the two rivers. We only come back to it at a later date when, God, what book was it? I can't remember, but then, Perrin comes back to make sure the Trollocs don't destroy the town again, from my memory. I think I'm missing a few plot points there, but you get the general gist of what I'm trying to get across. Oh, look at this photo. So we got Moraine on horseback, and we have what we have seen a gazillion times now, and that is of course the Waygate. Okay. Picture a boy. He learns to read late, really late. Like the letters that guide everyone as they're walking around, moving from point A to B. Is that AB? What is AB? As just twisted, illegible symbols to him, they're taunts. Then at last the boy learns to read. What does he read? Everyone else has already long since read the books you're supposed to read when you start reading. Okay, I see where they're going with this. At the bookstore one day in a corner, he sees a section of fixed spines in soft colours with wizards and swords on the covers. No one seems to go to this corner, the boy says. This is my corner. The books are as long as adults' books. Longer, in fact, and have sex scenes and magic, sometimes in that order. Sometimes the other way around. The boy becomes a fantasy reader, not science fiction with its clever guises about the dystopian future, its skies, the colour of television turned to a dead channel fantasy. He is, and he feels right, practically the only one he knows. The secret worlds the book encompass, full of legend and romance, sadness and heroism, become his secret worlds. Something he carries around with him even after the rest of life. Actual romance, actual sadness, sports, other types of books arrives. Something that belongs to him and him alone. Relatively early, 1991, the boy discovers The Eye of the World, the first book in this series of the Wheel of Time, and is enraptured. I believe it must be talking about Rafe Judkins here. Comes to know the characters as if they were real people. He wants to find out what happens to them, so begins a tradition. He waits for a new book in the series to come out, and when it does, he reads all the old books, not including a random 2004 sequel, in order again before reading the new one. I'm sure we've all done that. I know I did that for the last 4 books to come out, and when it does, blah, 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 in order to again read the new one. And he does this straight through the 14th and final book of the series, which was published in 2013. Oh my god, I can't believe we're nearly a decade in from when that happened. My god. He reads A Song of Fire and Ice to the source material for Game of Thrones with less excitement, but he reads those books one by one as they are published and keeps it all like a secret. So take the boy's word for it how strange and unlikely it all felt when Thrones had its television debut on HBO in 2011 and became what it became, which is to say one of the most watched and debated shows of this century. Watercooler talk about dragons and White Walkers. Furtive online genealogies piercing together ancient fictional royal bloodlines. These books had many readers, of course. Each new installment lived on the bestseller list. But fantasy as mass entertainment, something normal people followed and enjoyed and talked about at dinner parties, this felt like a surprise. More surprising, Thrones wasn't just popular, it altered television in some fundamental way that everyone who makes television is still reckoning with. Game of Thrones changed the context of what success was. It's very true. The Sopranos and other shows from TV. Blah, 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 blah. But yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I was in the middle of editing something else out, but then this came up and it was a lot easier for me to edit this without having to do a lot of editing afterwards. So this should be out first, and then later on I should have a behind the scenes breakdown from Monday's reveal. Bar anything else happening today from the official Wheel of Time account. You never know. Today's another day. Could get another video. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys later today.